Welcome to the Techy Tuesday updates for March. Let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Good. Right. There aren't too many, probably because they were all on Easter holiday, but we'll get started. So this one is to do with endpoint management. Anyone has got any of the enterprise upgrades, so standard and plus, this is already included in your enterprise subscription. But what they're doing is now they're putting in mobile device management, advanced mobile device management for education fundamentals. So that's the free version of Google. But what they're allowing people who are on the free version but still need to manage mobile devices centrally, they'll be able to purchase licenses. Not available yet, but it's coming. I think everyone on this call is already on an enterprise edition, so that really doesn't matter. This is just an update to playback if you've got videos that you've uploaded on Google Drive, that they've now made the playback, improved it basically, so that it will start playing a lot quicker, and you won't get any of the rebuffering that you may have gotten in the past. This next one is related to if you do use Looker or BigQuery, and you're running large data sets through BigQuery, for example. The timeout used to be 20 minutes. They've now increased that to 30, so that you can actually sort of like run a larger set of data without it timing out on you. This next one is useful from an admin point of view in that a few months ago, they introduced the space management. I remember Dave in particular looking at his spaces and kind of like realizing that he had hundreds that the students had all created. But this is just another thing that you, under space management, they're now expanding this so that you can add like groups into a space. So you as an admin can create a space and then add a group. So for example, if you've got a group called staff at, you can very quickly create a space with everyone in it. But it also allows you to sort of like review the detailed space settings and review if anyone else has invited a member into that group and review or deny it. This one is an interesting one. This is if you're migrating data from one Google Workspace domain into another. Probably more applies to I'm thinking of sort of like multi-academy trusts and things like that, where you take on another school, or you're a college group, you take on another college. If they've already got an existing workspace domain, but you need to migrate them into a single tenancy, then you can do it now using the migrate tool in Google. It's only for email though. It's in open beta, which means that you don't have to sign up to it. It's readily available, and you need to have the super admin credentials for the domain that you're migrating from into the domain that you want them to be in. You also need to create a migration map. So say this account needs to go into this account, and then you can select settings such as do you really want to migrate deleted emails? Do you really want to migrate spam emails? Things like that. But you can only do it 100 accounts at a time. But it will not migrate drive data.
I think Dave's got his hand up there. Dave, do you want to chip in?
Go for it, Dave.
Yeah, just wondering whether, this may or may not be able to be shared with various NDAs, but maybe somebody could nod their head whether they've heard that drive data will be coming to this area later on.
Couldn't possibly say, Dave.
Couldn't possibly say.
Couldn't possibly say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one is user enrollment for managed iOS devices is now generally available. So that is basically just an enhancement to, I mean, the Android enrollment for sort of like devices has always been there, particularly in the enterprise editions. This is just adding more functionality to the Apple devices. So allowing you to enroll work profiles and things like that on an Apple device. So with Android, for example, with my Google Pixel phone, if I'm doing something on my Android device, it'll ask me, do I want to use my work profile? Because I've obviously got my C Learning account on there, or do I want to use my personal profile? And it's, you set up those profiles to separate personal data from corporate data, so to speak, work data. So this is now available for iOS devices as well as the Android devices.
Andy, you got a question, my friend? I think you're on mute there. Yep, good to go.
Yeah. No, just on the subject of the mobile device management, how many people use that for either, you know, school issued phones, mobiles, or for just staff accounts generally on mobiles, where it segregates all the apps that they use on their phones? Do people generally use that, or if people like let that pass them by? Just wanted a show of hands if you use it.
A lot of time, from my experience, Andy, a lot of time it's one thing that's very overlooked, and particularly if they've sort of like have a culture where people can just sort of like at a college or school account to their personal mobile device. A lot of schools and colleges don't realize that they're actually syncing that data down to a personal mobile device. So, you know, within the security center, one of the things it checks for is whether you've got your settings for, you know, advanced mobile device management set up and what your restrictions are that you've put in place. And when it comes to like creating sort of like work profiles, you know, that's an important way of segregating what data is allowed on which profile and on which app.
Yeah, I think it's a really beneficial thing to use. If you're not using it, it is very beneficial to use. It just gives you a further level of control and security over staff who have either their own device, who bring it to you and they want to use their Google apps on there. And you can enforce things like make sure that they've got a lock code on their phone, that they're not just got to swipe up. So it's got some really basic things that you can enforce on there to increase your level of security of your school or college data.
Absolutely. And then the other thing you can do, Andy, is if a member of staff loses their phone or a member of staff leaves, you can remotely wipe the data off the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really useful to do that.
Yeah.
Stuart, I know you've got your hand up. I don't know whether you just got your hand up because you use the functionality or whether you want to chip in with a question at all, or...
Yeah, we're playing with it at the moment. We're playing with sort of corporate devices versus BYOD devices. And on the basis of what you said about the iOS bringing in the profiles, I think that's good because as it stands at the moment, if you can imagine my personal phone now, I enroll it into Google MDM. It integrates the apps at the moment with my apps. But from Google admin perspective, I have the option to wipe that device, which is a personal device. And that was a bit scary because I actually did it on one of our test devices. I'll just see what this does. Is it just going to wipe the Google account off it? No, it actually wiped the device. And if you do that to a personal device, that's a bit scary.
Yeah, it shouldn't do that. It should only remove. It's all dependent on with Android, you need to push the Android device policy.
Yeah,
and it shouldn't wipe the entire. It shouldn't like factory reset the device. It should only remove the corporate data that's controlled via the admin console.
Yeah, the Android worked fine. The iOS device.
The iOS, yeah. Well, the iOS again. The important thing with iOS is the push certificate.
Yeah.
But that's an improvement now. So they've sort of like stepped up a step. They've realized that there's been an issue there with iOS devices not having the same functionality as Android. So that's the way they've actually improved it. And when Chris sends around this slide deck, they've got a very useful. You can click on the link. It's got a very useful sort of like screen by screen shot on an iPhone as to exactly how it works.
Wow.
Okay.
Fantastic. Tony, you've got the best setup today with your couch and everything, but I noticed a slight flaw in your plan there. You have to get up if you want to put your hand up, which is a slight oversight, mate. But you've got your hand raised. So have you got?
I was hoping you wouldn't notice that, Chris. Very sorry about that. Yeah, my glamorous assistant here is also not actually doing his job. He should be pressing that thing, but anyway. But all I was going to say is, James, that particular feature looks very, very interesting, and that's something that you should discuss with our IT boys.
Yeah.
Whenever that's arranged, if you could just make a mental note of that, that would be really good.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of students here who use their personal mobile phones, a lot of them, and I've got no idea what the IT settings are that have been applied. I've got no idea because it's not my remit.
And the thing is, it's all to do with your data protection. It's completely to do with your data protection. And it's sort of like, if it's a personal device and they lose it or they sell it and they haven't factory reset it, then all of the sort of data that's been synced to that phone will go with that phone. So it's a very, very important thing to do.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate if you make a note of that. That would be great, James. Thank you.
Absolutely. So this next one is important. This is Google basically trying to, how shall I say it? Trying to, if you're using other messaging platforms, you can now use the Google Chat API and basically pull in messages from another chat platform, basically. So they basically are making it available so that you're using Google Chat rather than using any other messaging platform. This next one is a really useful one because when it comes to third-party apps, you used to be able to configure it at top level of domain. So it would be for the entire domain. They've now changed that so that you can apply it by OU. So you can apply which third-party apps are using a Google account, and you can apply it on a staff OU, you can apply it on a pupil OU, student OU, and you can restrict it as and how you wish. So it's just another level of granularity that you didn't have before. That you could only previously do that at the top level of the domain. This one's an important one. Currently, there are two things that you can do in Google Calendar. You can create appointment slots or you can create appointment schedulers. Slots are going away. They say in July 2024. It's the precise date is the 18th of July 2024. Slots will no longer be available. So people need to if they've got any slots booked for July, they need to change them over to scheduler. It won't happen automatically. So you will need to encourage people to set up their appointment scheduler. We use appointment scheduler across the C-Learning team. It's very useful. You just kind of like send a link out and people can see when you're booked, when you're not booked, and book an appointment with you. So it's more powerful rather than just doing the slots feature. But that's something that if you've got end users who are using the slots feature currently, they'll need to set up the a scheduler. Very useful. You can even within Gmail, there's the functionality to kind of like say, if someone called me today and said, have you got any time this afternoon? I can kind of like go into my Gmail, click on it, say, oh, I have got a slot between 2:15 and 2:30, and I can select that and it will send it to them in an email and they can just select it and kind of like go, okay, I'm available then too. Oh. Right, this This next one is to do with if you're migrating email from another email provider, which has encryption. So it's to do with client-side encryption. You can do that. You can migrate the encrypted messages from, say, Exchange or something like that into Gmail. But the caveat is here that the certificates, the security certificates, have to be the same. So your security certificate in Gmail for client-side encryption has to match that in Microsoft. And then you can migrate the messages across. And again, this is standard and plus only. And the next updates are on the 7th of May. So I'll stop sharing now and come back into the meet. I hope that was useful.
Nice and short.
Yeah, definitely about the MDM stuff. That's high on our agenda at the moment for Cyber Essentials Plus. So we're trying to work out how we can limit people access to the Google Workspace. We're not going to be able to do it for the entire college this year, but we're going to do it for a subset of users for a work-based learning contract.
Like I said, Stuart, it's something that's often overlooked, particularly with budgets and things like that, where you want to encourage bring your own device, BYOD, but you've also still got to secure that data.
Yeah. You can remove the data once they register once they connect to Google Workspace on the device. It does show up in the devices listening, so you still have sort of visibility of who's got what data. You can still wipe it from there, even without the advanced MDM.
Yeah.
Something that we've been struggling with is because we're trying to do the zero touch for the Android devices, and we work with Vodafone at the moment. We're having problems with Vodafone signing up to zero touch. At the moment, we've got a sort of Knox in between solution, but then Google doesn't accept data from Knox. So we're waiting for Vodafone at the moment to become a zero touch provider. Then we can push a profile and straight to the device.
Well, I'm having a problem with Vodafone at the minute myself, but it's nothing to do with mobile devices. It's to do with the share price.
Yeah. And the contract price.
And the contract price, yeah.
First, a random question. Has anybody set up resources within Google Workspace?
Yeah, Stuart, on that, I think the zero touch for me has been really useful. We annually push out to all the new starters their Chromebooks, and this year we did it with zero touch, and it was just a case of, take them home. Here's the box, off you go. Connect to Wi-Fi, and as soon as they connected to the Wi-Fi at home, which was easier than doing it in school.
Yeah.
And then that pushed all the policies out and enrolled them. So
are they enrolled at source by your provider then?
Yeah. Okay. So that was really good. That worked, flawlessly, really.
Yeah. Would you use as a provider or supplier? If you don't mind me asking.
What, in terms of hardware?
Yeah.
C-Learning.
C-Learning, okay.
Yeah, they're quite
Any
good.
particular model?
We use the Lenovo little 300Es,
right.
Gen 4s we've just done, which are the 8 gig modules of RAM. So the little 11.5-inch 360, so you can use them as a tablet or a tent mode, or use them as a clamshell. So they're very versatile. I've got a stylus in those, and we push those out to all our students. So yeah, around about 350-ish price point, something like that. It varies.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great little devices. And I haven't returned one on warranty in nearly 4 years.
Okay.
Sounds good. Andy, I actually had my finger over removed from the meeting then, but then you said C-Learning, so I left you in. Stuart, if I was going to say, Stuart, if you need any further info on that, I can put you in touch with Ian Lambert. If it's something that might be coming up at some point, you know where we are, mate. You can always just give us a shout.
Yeah, we did have about 600 to do this year, but then Google decided to extend the the lifespan.
How
of
dare
a
they? How dare
Chromebook,
they?
so
Yeah.
We've got a couple of years yet.
Yeah, it's just easy. Ian sends out, all the information to you, and you get a list of serial numbers, and just really hand them out with some basic instructions for the parents to do at home before they come into school. The hardest thing is if they come into school, you either really got to do it off a cable connection or, have some sort of open network they automatically connect to. Whereas at home, it's much easier because they automatically connect to their home Wi-Fi and they know the credentials.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Right. And we got any other comments, or should we wrap it up early and give you another 36 minutes back of your day?
Definitely not 36 minutes. Dave's going to come in a second.
Oh,
but I'll Dave, just before you do, if you just bear with me, just been meeting our new member of the team, Christabella, who's going to be looking after our online marketing community and lots of different stuff. So at some point, I'm going to introduce Christabel to this call. What we're going to be doing is also getting customer feedback. What I'm interested in in my role as CEO is an understanding of what our expectations are and what you understand them to be. Just in regards to, why is it that you come to these things? What does community mean to you, and how can we better inform that place of community and what our vision is? So it's really exciting. One other thing that we discussed is around creation of short videos, going into social, but also into this community in terms of the chat group. So if you're not on the chat group, what we're going to start to do is create short videos that will be things that we've discussed, like the MDM on iOS and the stuff in terms of the move from appointment slots to scheduler, or all of those simple things in terms of these updates, going through those and breaking down some of these in terms of there might be only one or two, like Stuart said, where ultimately there might be a ZTE bit or an MDM, and then somebody's listened for 30 minutes and there's a real point that reflects with you. What we're going to try and do is do more of those and then share them across the community through the chat group and on email as well. So if there's anything particular that you're thinking that you'd like short form webinars, videos on to help you in terms of your admin roles or your roles within your organization, and I know there's a couple of people that look across in terms of teaching, learning and tech side as well, feel free and watch this space. We're going to be building something a little bit different, which is going to be a bit exciting. So yeah, looking forward to it. Dave, if you want to come in, mate.
Yeah, just two things for me, really. Just going back to the spaces management, I can't remember whether it was in the C-Learning monthly updates group, but there was a question asked in a forum that I'm part of that was asking what happens if you add a group to a space and then an individual removes themselves from that space. Are they automatically re-added? Was that within our group, or is that somewhere else I read this?
That wasn't within our group, Dave. But if you're that feature that we've just covered, adding a group to a space, that's a new thing from March. So,
but will it cover it, James? Is what Dave's asking in terms of exploration.
If they're still part of the group, then they might remove themselves from the space, but they will be automatically re-added because they're still part of the group. They would have to remove themselves from the group first.
Yeah, which they wouldn't. They wouldn't have access to do so, would they? They
wouldn't have access to remove themselves.
I just think it was worth bringing that up because there is the option for them to remove themselves from the space, but not from the group. So it might lead to a generation of some support calls for people on this call is the reason that I bring it up.
Yeah.
Because there was I can't remember which space I read it in, but there was a whole discussion around it, and they came to the same conclusion as James has just outlined there, that if they remove themselves from the space, they will be re-added. I don't recall how often that synchronization runs, but I would imagine at the very least it would be once per 24 hours. So, but yeah, just bear that in mind, that if somebody wants to be removed from a space that you've added them to as an admin as part of a group, then you might have to remove them from the group or look at that structure as well. It's these little things, isn't it, that they seem almost inconsequential on the surface, but then when you get to certain use cases, it can lead you to rethinking your whole group structure. on occasions.
Yes,
So.
it's that learning of taking Workspace Enterprise, Dave, as you're saying, into the education context and also applying it to FE, which is very different to many nations in regards to the structure of education. You've probably got K-12 and then HE, but ultimately FE and multi-academy trust and the structure within England particular and Wales is very different. So trying to apply that to context. James, can you make a note and ask Ollie Trussell and get some 100% confirmation on that, and flag it up to Ollie, just whether, if that is the case, and then we can get some stuff and put that into newsletter or communication to the chat, Dave, to then say, this is what it is, and bear in mind, this is the steps of, yes, you'd have to re-add them or you'd have to remove them or something to put it into context. So James, if you can make a note of that and ping that to Ollie Trussell, we can get the example, if Google are willing to commit at this stage, of what happens, and then come back to the community with it, please.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you.
Stuart?
We actually do that, Dave and Steve. We've got a group synced from a directory into Google via using GAD's tool, and if somebody takes themselves out, next time it syncs, it puts them back into the group. So into the space then, sorry. So yes, it does refresh. It works well because we've got a Welsh list and an English list, and you can imagine a lot of people don't want to be in both, but they got no choice. So
do you know what the refresh cycle is on that, Stuart?
I don't know that.
Okay, no worries, thank you.
We'll ask that, Dave, though, in terms of the new functionality, if there's a refresh cycle and how often, hourly, daily, or could be yearly, who knows with Google, but we'll make sure we confirm what the parameters are so your expectations are managed as well.
Sorry, thinking about it, we started off adding people individually to the space, and they were able to take themselves out of the space. Since we added them as in the group, they weren't allowed to leave the space.
Ah, so they don't even have the option, do they not?
No.
That's right. Cool.
That's what I was thinking. That's right. We went to the group option rather than the individual option.
So
they don't have management of the group. If you do the management of the group, then they could take themselves out.
Yeah.
If they don't have management of the group, then they can.
They can't, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a workaround, isn't it? If you have a group which some people would like to be conscientious objectors, you don't add them as a group, you add them as individuals, and then they've got that option still.
Only take them out from the group.
Yeah, but you may need, I'm thinking of some of ours who might still want to have them as part of a group for
other purposes, yeah.
Distribution group purposes, for example, but not for spaces purposes.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks for that. Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to say as well is, I mean, Gary's looking very relaxed there on his sofa, very chilled, and I wonder if that's because of his the news that he's had this morning and that he's all chilled and happy. So congratulations to Gary.
Dave, don't. You've just opened the door, haven't you? His head is bigger than the planet. For Christ's sake, it's been a nightmare all day so far, mate. Yeah. Every 5 minutes. Did you know? Did you know?
But,
Nightmare, isn't it?
Do people know, Tony? I mean, maybe you want to share it with this group.
Well, I don't want to share it.
I think you should. Yeah, share it. Share. What's the news? What's
Go
the
on,
news?
Gary.
Come on.
I'm going to Chicago on the Innovator program.
Brilliant.
I got selected.
Well
Quite shocked this morning when I got that email. Did a lap of the new island.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And then I've just been telling Tony constantly that I'm going and he's not.
Is that because Tony didn't apply or wasn't accepted?
Yeah, no, I didn't apply, but I did make him buy me a cake in celebration.
So you're a winner as well then, Tony?
Yeah, well, I'm winning to win him.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock this morning, but thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.